Chapter 1. The sea cannot hide the malicious. You arrive at the island with the usual expectations: sun, sea, and quiet. But you know, from the moment you see Arlena Marshall step onto the sand, that everything is off. She's not just pretty, she's a statement. Something no one asked for, but can't take your eyes off. You sit next to Poirot, the little man with the sculpted mustache. He doesn't say much, but each blink of his eyes seems to capture the entire world. You don't believe in coincidence. And Poirot, he believes in one thing: crime always goes on holiday in August. Arlena smiles. Patrick watches. Christine purses her lips. Linda Marshall peeks, then looks down. No one touches a knife, but the air smells of metal. You think you're just an observer, but you're wrong. The next morning, you hear that Arlena is dead. On the rocks, strangled. The wind blowing through the window carries a fishy smell. And you realize this death is not the beginning. It is the consequence. Poirot begins to ask, not loudly, not with authority, just with his eyes. The first question, Miss Redfern. Who were you with that morning? Christine smiles, gently, with Linda. Linda glances at you, and you see her hands shaking. A lie and a secret. You don't know that you are about to be drawn into a game where every little detail could be fatal. And Poirot, he saw the first signs, because the truth is, Arlena wasn't killed by a fit of anger. She was killed by years of simmering resentment. And one fine morning, someone decided it was time to end it all. Chapter 2. Confession and Darkness. You think of Linda after that nod. She is 16, thin-shouldered, her eyes wild. It is not the look of a liar, but of one who has been forced to keep silent. You have seen it in Paris, when a mother confesses for her son, and you see it here, against the white walls, too clean to be innocent. Poirot does not question her at once. He knows that people who are afraid never tell the truth when cornered. He simply leaves the notebook and pen on the table. No pressure, no urging. You stand behind him as Linda takes up the pen. She writes without hesitation, as if it has been waiting too long to come out. I was not with her. She told me to say so. The writing trembles slightly, but clearly. Poirot closes the notebook. No more questions. No need. A piece of the puzzle falls into place, and he begins to look at the whole picture. Christine Redfern, the gentle, quiet wife. But you begin to see the cold outline under the white dress. She has lied. For whom? For Patrick. You remember the way Patrick looked at Arlena, not as someone who is infatuated, but as someone who is hypnotized, a magnet with no choice. Poirot does not go straight to Patrick. He chooses Christine first. You follow him out, onto the terrace. She is sitting there, an open book in one hand, the other clenched in her palm. Poirot does not beat around the bush. Linda does not confirm your story. You see Christine pale, but she still smiles. The girl is disturbed. She lost her mother when she was young. She made it up. Poirot is unmoved. You have an alibi for yourself. But why are you afraid of being accused? Or is it something more? Christine looks at him. For the first time, there is no answer. You stand there, listening to the waves crashing against the rocks. know she didn't kill Arlena, but she knows who did. And she is silent because it is not justice, it is love. Poirot leaves. Without saying anything more, he has asked a question, but he doesn't need an answer now. You walk with him to the dock, where Patrick is tying up the rope. Sun-tanned face, broad shoulders, the perfect image, if you hadn't noticed the evasive eyes. Poirot asks, "What did you know that morning?" Patrick tries to smile. "Just out for a walk. By chance." "By chance? You hear the wind change," Poirot whispers, almost to himself. There is nothing accidental about being in the right place at the right time. To see a dead body. You look at Patrick. Sweat is beginning to bead, not from the sun. And you know the game begins. One person lied. One person kept silent. One person loved wrongly, and you, just the listener. But now, you are in the middle of the spiral, where every choice leads to the final blade. Chapter 3. Silent Marriage. Unknown Crime. You don't expect much from Kenneth Marshall at first. The man is quiet, his shirt always pressed, his voice barely audible, a shadow in the background of the talk of louder people. But Poirot sees him differently, not because he stands out, but because he gives nothing away. You join Poirot in the reading room. Kenneth is holding the Times, but his eyes are not reading. A kind of pretense that only those who have buried their grief can master. Poirot begins, as usual, polite, soft, but razor sharp. "Do you love your wife?" You have never heard the question put so calmly. Kenneth looks up, his eyes not averting. "Once," he says, "a long time ago." Poirot nods. "And then, after that, I wasn't me. She took it all." There was no pain in his voice, no justification, just emptiness. It made you shiver. Poirot continued. "And you stayed." "Not for her," Kenneth said, "for my daughter. Linda needed a father, not another evil mother. You weren't sure if you were hearing an excuse or a confession. But Poirot was clear he was assessing a mind, not a heart. "You didn't ask me who killed Arlena," Poirot remarked. Kenneth simply said, "I knew you would find out. Sooner or later." Poirot stood up. "I will." You left the room with him, saying nothing. But in your mind, the question kept ringing, could that man kill? Not out of jealousy, not out of anger, out of a desire to escape. You remembered Linda's eyes. Remember the hand that clenched whenever Arlena came near. If Kenneth did that, he probably thought it was for his daughter. Outside, the sea lapped gently against the quay. The sky was blue. The sun was bright. But you saw that the shadows were beginning to shorten, meaning that dusk was not far away. Poirot turned to you, slowly. They all had their reasons, but reasons are not proof. I need more. A slip of the tongue. A lover who would not keep quiet. You asked, "Who was that?" Poirot did not answer, but you knew he was thinking of Rosamond Darnley, the only woman who had not spoken, and in this story, the one who kept quiet the longest was often the one who knew the most. Chapter 4. The Shadow of the Old, the Unblurred Truth. You find Rosamond Darnley in the small sewing room at the end of the second-floor corridor. She is fixing a hem, each needle as sharp as her view of life. Careful, cool, never too close. But Poirot is not afraid of being stabbed, the only woman who says nothing. he says softly, which means she is watching everything. Rosamond does not turn around. I always prefer to look than to talk. Poirot enters. And I have always believed that the woman who chooses to be silent in a crowd is often the one who knows the storm is coming. You stand in the doorway. Watch the light fall through the curtains, reflecting off Rosamond's back. A silent statue, but full of facts. You knew Kenneth would be here. Poirot continues. You did not come by chance. Rosamond turned. Her eyes did not avert. I know, and I am not ashamed of it. Poirot nodded. You still love him. What about love? She sat down, her needle still in her hand, but no longer sewing. I did not kill Arlena, nor did Kenneth. Poirot did not confirm, nor did he deny. He walked to the window. The question is not who strangled her. It is who let her live so long as a victim. You heard the words ring out like a temple gong, heavy, slow, and haunting. Rosamond sighed. Arlena rotted from within. She did not need a weapon, just her eyes and her lips. Poirot turned back, and Kenneth, she destroyed him every day. But he did not leave. Because of Linda. You thought of the girl, eyes swollen, lips bitten, bleeding. A child living between two worlds. A silent father. A foul-mouthed stepmother. You understand. She doesn't need a reason to hate Arlena. She just needs to be near her. Poirot steps closer to Rosamond. You didn't kill. But you know who did. Rosamond doesn't answer. But her lips are pressed together. A painful line. And he didn't kill because he was angry. Poirot says, he thought he was doing the right thing. You feel the small room shrinking. Poirot says softly, your silence is love. But the truth is the only thing that can save the rest. Rosamond looks at him. Long. Very long. Finally, she says, if you are wise enough to know that I don't lie, you are wise enough to know I won't speak for others. Poirot smiles sadly. I don't need to. I just need to see who's shaking when the light comes in. You leave the room, following him down the cold brick hallway. And you know a door has opened. Not by words, but by cracks in the silence. And the truth doesn't need to enter through the door. It creeps in through the cracks. And once it's in, it doesn't leave. Chapter 5. The entertainment curtain. The stage of murder. You and Poirot return to the rocky beach where Arlena's body was found. The sea breeze is hot on your cheeks, and where the body once stood, there are only footprints in the sand. But for Poirot, the beach is more than a crime scene. It is a stage, and each character has played his part. What do you see? Poirot asks. It was Hickson. You look boulders, depressions in the sand, dried seaweed. Nothing in particular. Poirot shakes his head, almost disappointed. No, that's wrong. Not saw what. It's who saw what and when. He takes out his notebook and turns to a page he has already written on. Columns of time, names, routes, statements, a tiny survey, as precise as a military topographical map. Patrick said he found the body at 9. Poirot said, Christine said she was with Linda from 8 to 8:30, but Linda denies it. Kenneth has no alibi. Rosamond has, but no one checked. And Arlena was last seen at 8:30. You frowned. Who had time to kill her? Poirot tapped a name, Christine. You were startled. Not Patrick. Poirot chuckled. Patrick was infatuated, but he had no ability to set things up. Christine was different. She had a false alibi. She used Linda as a shield. She had time. And most important, she had a motive. To protect the man she thought she owned. You thought back to her cutting Patrick off. Her cold gaze sweeping over Arlena. And now you understood. It wasn't just jealousy. It was strategy. Poirot continues. They set the scene. Patrick went walking right where the body was. Christine pretended to be with Linda. But they didn't take into account one thing. Linda couldn't lie, and Arlena wasn't easy to control. So Patrick was an accomplice, you ask. Poirot mused. Maybe. Or he was just a pawn. The one who really pulled the strings could have been Christine. But I'm not sure. One detail doesn't add up. You stood there, the wind swirling around you, and you felt what Poirot saw: murder in the air, a crime not committed by an idiot, but by someone who knew the weaknesses of those around him. Poirot put away his notebook. We need to go through it all again. But this time, by the eyes. Who didn't look at the body? Who didn't look at Arlena when she walked into the sea for the last time? You didn't understand. Poirot simply says, a murderer avoids looking at his victim, both in life and in death. It is a sign of guilt. He turns, his eyes sharp as knives. And I will set the trap, not with evidence, but with self-betrayal. You don't ask any more questions. Just know from now on, every sentence will be a reshuffling of the cards, and Poirot is the dealer. Chapter 6. 6. The Last Invitation. The trap begins. You find the invitation under the door. It's not formal. It's not forced, but you know. When Hercule Poirot invites someone to a place, it's not for tea. It's to turn the cards. The reenactment takes place at the right time: morning, calm sea, light wind. No sound except the rustle of slippers and the gentle lapping of the waves. Just like the morning Arlena died, Poirot doesn't stand in the center. He puts everyone in their place. Patrick stands at the foot of the rocks, Christine beside Linda, awkwardly. Kenneth is to one side, holding a book, his eyes fixed on his daughter. Rosamond just watches. We'll try again. Poirot says, once more. Let's see whose memory is the best and whose conscience is the worst. You feel your heart beat faster, not because you suspect anyone, but because you see, right now, everyone is beginning to suspect themselves. Christine speaks first. I don't think it's necessary. This isn't a game. Poirot smiles slightly. No, madame. This is a stage, and everyone is acting. He signals. Patrick goes down to the beach, as he said he would, on time, in the right direction, in the right place. Christine stands on the shore, watching, as she did that morning. Linda stands beside her, but her eyes are on Poirot. And then he asks Patrick, when you got to the body, how was she? Patrick hesitates. On her back, arms outstretched, eyes open. Poirot nods. And Christine, you're up here. Did you see him bend down? Yes, Christine says. He called my name. Poirot nods. So Linda, did you hear that? Linda shook her head. Silence. Poirot looked around, as if waiting for someone to say something. But no one spoke. And then he did the unthinkable. He walked down to the beach, bent down to where the body had been, and called out, "Christine." The sound echoed off the cliffs. But up there, no one responded. No one heard clearly. No one reacted. Poirot turned. No one could have heard from that distance. He said, no one could have heard Patrick calling. No one else, unless they were never here. Unless it was all a setup. You felt the air thicken. Christine stood still. Patrick pursed his lips. Kenneth closed his eyes. Rosamond looked down at her feet. Linda was crying. Poirot stepped forward again. His voice was low. The murderer thinks he is smarter than time, but time does not lie. And the truth always echoes, like an echo on stone. You don't need to ask any more. You see it clearly. The mask is starting to crack. Chapter 7. Breaking in the Silence. You leave the reenactment with Poirot in silence. No one speaks. No one looks directly at each other. No need for accusations. Silence is the most damning indictment. Christine has not had dinner. You find her sitting alone in the living room. The light from the chandelier casting long shadows across the wooden floor like a crack in her memory. Patrick walks in, trying to be casual, but you see the way his shoulders hunched when she doesn't turn her head. What do you think he knows? Christine asks, emotionless. Patrick swallows. Not sure, but he's pushing us to the edge. Christine stands up. Her voice is sour. No. Patrick, we were at the edge. Ever since you started playing with that fire called Arlena. Patrick steps forward. You think I killed her? Christine turned. Her eyes were sharp as daggers. No, but you left me to face this alone. And if I must sink, I will sink first. You didn't listen. There was no need. It wasn't a conversation. It was the beginning of the downfall. Poirot sat in the courtyard, his glass empty, his eyes half closed. He didn't speak, but you knew he was waiting. Not for proof, but for the moment when a liar begins to believe his own words. The next morning, Christine didn't come down to breakfast. Mama yatramus. Patrick had disappeared early too. Linda, her face white, sat beside Rosamond, holding a small notebook. Poirot came, as gently as ever. He put his hand on her shoulder. You don't have to carry it alone. Linda looked at him. Tears flowed silently. I don't hate her, but I'm scared. She makes everything difficult. Every time my father laughs, I know something is going to happen. Poirot nods. And that morning, Linda chokes. I saw Christine come out, earlier than you said, and Patrick, standing on the rocks, but not looking at her. Didn't look, you asked softly. No, Linda says. He turned away, as if he didn't dare face her. Poirot notes. No unnecessary questions. No further push. You leave the room with him. And as the door closes, Poirot says, Patrick knew. Christine hid. Linda was afraid. And Kenneth waited. Waited for what you ask. Poirot looks at you, his eyes bright, as if he had just seen a beacon in the middle of the night. Waited for the collapse. And it has begun. Chapter 8. The Voice That Must Not Be Named. You see Patrick Redfern sitting on the edge of the pier, looking out to sea. Gone is the charm. Gone is the look of a man who knew he was handsome. There is only the shadow of a man who once believed himself innocent and is now beginning to doubt his own memory. Poirot does not come at once. He keeps Patrick waiting, for he knows silence is an invitation the guilty never endures for long. Finally, Patrick speaks first. "I love her," he says, without turning. "Arlena." You are not surprised. You already know. But what you do not know is what he is going to say next. "She doesn't deserve it," he says. "But I can't help it. I don't think Christine knows. But she always knows." Poirot sits down beside him, silent. Patrick continued. "Christine was not a weakling. She loved me like one keeps a knife in one's hand, always ready to use it. You felt the wind change. The waves rustled, as if concealing what was about to be said. Arlena made an appointment with me that morning." Patrick continued. "I didn't go. Christine knew about the appointment. I think she went instead of me." Poirot opened his notebook, and then Patrick turned. His eyes were red. "I don't know what happened, but when I got to the rocks, she was dead. And Christine looked at me as if I were an accomplice." No words needed. You asked quietly, "Did you ask her?" "No." Patrick said, "I was afraid. If she did it for me, then I am an accomplice. If not, then I don't want to know who killed Arlena." Poirot closed the notebook. "So you came to see me?" "Why?" Patrick sighed. "Because I dreamed that Christine killed me. In that dream, she didn't say anything. She just stood there, watching me stop breathing." Poirot put a hand on his shoulder. There was no comfort, just confirmation. He was at the edge of the truth. "A murderer doesn't need to hide everything," Poirot said. "It's enough to scare people enough that they don't dare ask questions." "You left the dock with him." The sea was still blue, but deep down you knew someone had cracked. And in those cracks, the first light of truth had shone through. Chapter 9. The Bloodless Battle. You don't know how long Poirot has been planning this meeting. But when he enters the drawing room, where Christine sits like a lifeless plaster statue, you know he hasn't come to ask questions. He's come to finish. Christine doesn't look up when he enters. She knows, probably for days. She's been waiting for this moment, when all the tact, all the lies, all the moral veneer begins to peel away. Poirot sits down opposite. Between them is the tea table, 2 unfilled cups, and a space as thick as an invisible wall. Patrick came to see me. He says. Christine looks up, not surprised, just a flicker, like eyes touching smoke. "Did he say anything?" she asks. As Poirot nods. "He dreamed you killed him." Christine smiles. For the first time in days, you see a real smile, not a social smile, but the smile of someone who has nothing left to hold on to. "I should have." She says, "He didn't deserve the lie I've been defending." Poirot tilts his head. "So you admit it?" Christine purses her lips. "No. I didn't kill Arlena." You start, but Poirot doesn't look surprised. "You made up a false alibi. You lied about that morning. You made Linda think she was hallucinating. But you didn't kill her." Christine lets out a long, tired breath. "I just wanted Arlena out of my life. Not dead. Just gone." Poirot nods. And when you got to the rocks, what did you see? Silence. Then Christine spoke, slowly, word by word, as if drawn from the back of her throat. Arlena was dead. Her neck was bruised. Her eyes were open. And Kenneth was standing over her body. You felt a cold chill run down your spine. Poirot said nothing. He knew. From the moment Kenneth did not react to the reenactment, from the moment he did not ask, did not deny, did not get angry, Christine continued, he did not hide. He did not cry. He just sat there, as if he had just done what he had to do all along. And what did you do? Poirot asked. Bend over. Wipe away the traces. Clear the way out. Create false evidence. Call Patrick. Pretend to be the first to find the body. You looked at Christine, no longer hating her. You saw only a woman who had lost. In marriage. In love. In the battle to protect herself. Poirot stood up. You're not the culprit, but you've made the crime cleaner, and that, sometimes it's more dangerous than murder. Christine sat back. No tears, no apologies. Just broken, untouched. Chapter 10. The Last Chess. The Silent Man. You find Kenneth Marshall sitting in the library, where the light is never bright enough to illuminate a face. He is turning a book without reading it. His fingers are tapping slowly on the cover, the rhythm of someone who has waited a long time for this moment. Poirot enters without knocking. He does not need to. The door of truth has been opened. Only the man has not come out. You are not surprised at my arrival, Poirot says. Kenneth looks up. His voice is low and tired. No, I knew this would come. Poirot does not sit. He stands, like a prosecutor, who needs no chair to lean on, only precision. I want to tell you a story, Poirot says, about a man who loved. And then love turned to silence. Then to fear. Then to hatred. You stood still. Kenneth still did not object. The man married a woman whom all other men desired, Poirot continued. But no one knew that he lived with a knife to his throat. Every night, every meal, every whisper was an invisible cut. Kenneth did not object, did not explain. He was listening as if it were someone else's story. But you knew. He was listening as if he were looking at himself in a mirror. And then one day, Poirot said, the man saw his daughter, the only person he really had left, begin to fear the light. Not because Arlena had beaten her, but because her presence was ruin. Kenneth closed his eyes. Poirot lowered his voice. And when he saw Arlena walking down the rocks, alone, no one watching, no one waiting, he knew. Either he stopped her, or she would ruin Linda too. Silence. Poirot finished, and you killed. Not with anger, with fatigue, with despair, with the love that remained, not for Arlena, but for Linda. Kenneth opened his eyes. There was no water, no reaction, only one word. What are you going to do? Poirot stepped closer. I will tell you the truth, but not to punish you, but to let Linda live in the light that you wished for her. Kenneth nodded. Then tell her, I'm sorry for not protecting her sooner. You left the library with Poirot. It was dark, and in that darkness, at last, the quietest of men spoke. Chapter 11. Last call on the island. You stand by the window of the small banqueting room. watching each person enter. No one laughs, no one jokes. The room is full of chairs, but short of air. Poirot stands at the head of the table, not raising a glass, not saying a word, just waiting for everyone to be seated. Gentlemen, he begins. I have found the murderer. A sentence. Simple. But you see everyone's spine stiffen, as if the words are a rope pulling them to an invisible gallows. Rosamond gently takes Linda's hand. Christine withdraws her hand from Patrick's lap. Kenneth looks at no one. Poirot walks around the table, slowly, each step counting the beats of the listener's heart. Arlena Marshall died of asphyxiation. Her throat was strangled, but not by a jealous man, not by an adulterer, by the quietest man. Linda started to get up, but Rosamond held her back. Poirot did not look at her. He looked at Christine. You did not kill Arlena, but you lied and planted the evidence. You let Linda think she was mad. You made Patrick believe he was in bondage. You put on a show, but you were not the director. You were the makeup artist. Christine said nothing. Her eyes were closed like blunt blades. Poirot turned to Patrick. You are not a murderer, but you are a coward. You saw the truth and turned away for love. An unworthy love. Patrick bowed his head. Poirot went to Kenneth. Oshki, you were the last person to be with Arlena. No one saw you. No one heard you. Because you knew silence is the safest place to hide a crime. Kenneth did not deny it. Not because he was helpless, but because he had admitted it to himself long ago. Poirot continued, as if delivering a verdict without a court. You killed because you thought you were protecting your daughter. But killing is never protection. It is the end of the choice. You looked around. No one spoke. But the truth stood in the middle of the room, and no one could avoid it. Poirot paused, then looked at Linda. You are not the cause. You are the victim of a chain of adults who refused to tell the truth. Linda burst into tears. Rosamond hugged her. Poirot said no more. He left the room. You followed him, leaving behind people who had thought they could survive on lies, now faced with the truth, naked and undeniable. Chapter 12. The Last Light. The New Horizon. You follow Poirot onto the balcony. It is almost evening. The sun is falling over the edge of the sea, painting the horizon gold. The last light before night falls again. Poirot sits down, removing his gloves one by one. Slowly, as if removing the role he has played throughout the case. You know, he says some people think of justice as a prison, a sentence. But in fact, justice is sometimes just release. You sit down next to him. Don't ask. You need to understand. Not about the murderer, but about the detective. Poirot continues. Kenneth Marshall will not be arrested. I will not denounce him. You turn around, surprised. But he has expected the reaction. He has already condemned himself. Poirot says he will live with that burden for the rest of his life. Every time he looks at Linda, it is a reminder of the sentence. You remember Kenneth's eyes, no regret, no fear, just emptiness. Poirot looks out to sea. Christine will leave Patrick, not for me, but because she knows love cannot grow on a lie. You nod, and Rosamond, you ask. Poirot smiles. She will stay, not for Kenneth, For Linda, a real mother, she doesn't have to give birth to a child to love it. You see Linda running across the sand in the distance, no longer cowering, no longer afraid of the light. Poirot says softly, "Sometimes a case ends not when we find the killer, but when the living can start living again." You stand up, not saying goodbye. With Poirot, you never need to say that. You just walk away, carrying with you a lesson as heavy as stone, but as clear as water. The truth always exists, slowly, silently. It finds its way out. The sun sets completely, and you, at last, leave the island, carrying with you the last light, not of the sun, but of a soul that has understood justice. Sometimes is when the one who caused the pain must live forever with that memory. Chapter 13. The Shadow in Room 17. You return to the hotel alone. There is no Poirot, no wary glances from Patrick, no forced sighs from Christine. Linda has left with Rosamond. Kenneth has disappeared without a word. But you know, it's not over here. There is one room no one has mentioned. Room 17. Arlena had said she would move to that room for more peace and quiet. But when she was murdered, she was found on the rocks. No one asked about the empty room. No one went to see. You take the key and open the door yourself. The room is clean, too clean. The bed is made. The pillows are not wrinkled. The table is dust-free. No suitcase, no handbag, not a single bra or compact. Nothing to indicate that Arlena was ever there. You enter, closing the door behind you. The room is sound-absorbing. You hear your heart beating, and a chill creeps down your spine. On the table, you find a small notebook. Black leather, not the hotel's. The first page is in a man's handwriting, big, straight, neat. If you don't leave, there won't be a third time. No signature, no date. You close the notebook. Take it to the front desk. Ask who has been in the room since Arlena. The receptionist is puzzled. No one. She's moved to another room, but she's kept the lock. No one has cleaned it since, So, who left the notebook? And why hasn't anyone been in it? You call Poirot. An hour later, he's there, looking at the notebook, thoughtful. Then he asks, "Have you noticed, under the table?" You turn around, bend down. There's something stuck there with black tape. A hairpin, but it's not Arlena's. Not the gold she usually wore. This one was painted black, plain, cheap, the kind only servants would wear. Poirot picked it up, his eyes flashing. We were wrong. This room was never Arlena's. You looked at him, waiting for an explanation. Someone pretended to be Arlena in this room. He said, someone came in, leaving no trace except the hairpin that fell out. Poirot tapped the notebook. And this, it's not a threat to Arlena. It's to the person who's playing her. Who you asked, Poirot said softly. Someone who appeared and disappeared without anyone noticing. Not a guest. Not an employee. You shuddered. There was a 14th person not on the list, not in the guest book, not in anyone's memory. A shadow, present for a few hours, is enough to set a trap. Always. Chapter 14. The woman is not on the list. You and Poirot turn over the list of guests who have booked rooms at the hotel in the past 2 weeks. Every line is neat and neatly printed. No strange names. No sign of extras. Poirot asks the receptionist, "Has anyone come here without a reservation? Just to stay for a few hours." The receptionist is puzzled. "No, sir. We don't rent by the hour." Poirot smiles. "I didn't say rent." There is a pause. Then the maid, a thin girl with pigtails, approaches. Her voice is low, but firm. "There was a woman who came the day Arlena died. She went straight upstairs. I thought she was a friend of the guest, so I didn't ask." Poirot asks, "Do you remember her face?" "I don't know. She was wearing a wide-brimmed hat, dark glasses, and a dark blue dress." You see Poirot pause. "A dark blue dress." The girl nods. Poirot turns to you. "Patrick said Arlena was wearing a red swimsuit that day, but at the scene, she was wearing a blue dress. No one mentioned that. They probably thought it was an unimportant detail." You suddenly understand. There were two women that morning. One of them was Arlena, the other, the decoy. Poirot continues, "Which room did she go into?" The cleaner hesitates. "Room 17. I saw the door open. She entered and closed it. She left an hour later." You ask, "No one checked?" "No. The receptionist changed shifts early that day." Poirot nods. "And that's how she left no trace." He turned to you, his voice low. "That woman was not Arlena's friend. She was part of the plan, pretending to be Arlena, appearing at the right time, in the right place, to create a false identity. You thought of Christine, of Patrick, of Kenneth. Each had a motive, but the woman in the green dress was none of them. She was the ghost, an unconnected link." Poirot closed his eyes. "The murderer hired someone to impersonate Arlena, to plant false evidence, to confuse the time of death." A chill ran down your spine. That is, Arlena's real time of death was not 11 o'clock, as everyone thought. It could have been earlier. And the person who saw her alive afterwards saw only the imposter. Poirot said softly, "We are hunting someone who has no name, no face, but who holds the key to the whole case." Chapter 15. Unclaimed Luggage. Poirot calls the local police, not to arrest anyone, but to ask about the thing people forget. Not clues, but luggage. At the train station, less than an hour's boat ride from the island, the baggage manager confirms there is a suitcase left behind the day Arlena died. No one has claimed it. No label. You arrive with Poirot. The suitcase is small, black and scratched, inconspicuous. No one has noticed it. But when you open it, you understand this is a murderer's treasure. Inside, a dark blue dress, a wide-brimmed hat, dark glasses, along with a bottle of cheap perfume. Not the scent Arlena used. There are also flat shoes, worn, sandy, clearly worn, only once. Poirot picks up an envelope. No address, no recipient. The paper is stained, the writing is crooked. I did as you asked. I pretended to be her, walked across the rocks as promised. But I saw something you didn't tell me. The body. I wasn't paid. I didn't come back. This is the last time. You read it 3 times. An unknown witness, and now gone. Poirot says nothing. He just closes the suitcase and looks at you. Someone paid to put life back together. Just before taking it away, you step back, breathless. Not from fear, but from meticulousness. The murderer doesn't just kill. He writes a play, casts the parts, plans the details, and even prepares to reenact it if necessary. Poirot asks the storekeeper, "Did anyone see the person who sent the suitcase?" He shakes his head. "No, it was put in the corner. No one remembers when." Poirot sighs. "We're no longer looking for an imposter. We're looking for a scriptwriter. Someone who knows the psychology of each character and knows how to make us look the wrong way." You leave the train station, head heavy. One person has been killed. One person has been impersonated. And one person, still unmasked, has created the perfect illusion to kill without leaving any blood. Chapter 16. A knock in the night. You return to the hotel with Poirot. This time, looking not for physical evidence, but for something that is often overlooked, the fragmented memories of people no one asks. The old maid, named Maureen, is the first to speak. She has worked here for more than 10 years. Her eyesight is fading. Her hearing is failing. But there is one thing she remembers clearly. The night before Arlena died, I heard a knock at the door. You ask which door. She answers immediately. Without hesitation, room 14, Arlena's rooms. You and Poirot look at each other. Are you sure? Poirot asks. Yes, because it wasn't a single knock. It was 3. Staccato, like a code. Poirot nods. 1, 2, and then 1. Maureen taps her finger on the coffee table. Like a rendezvous. Did you open the door to see who it was? She shakes her head. No, I was afraid. Because no one answered. The room was dead silent. What time was it, you ask? She frowns. About 3 in the morning. You feel a chill down your spine. Arlena died the next morning. But if someone knocked on her door at 3 in the morning, then either she was alive or someone was checking something. Poirot stands up. I want to see the floor plan. You look back at the hotel plan with him. Arlena's room is number 14, right next to room 15, which was empty at the time. Room 17 is at the end of the corridor. Poirot points out, someone went through this corridor at 3 in the morning, checking or confirming something, and left a signal. You whisper, could it have been an imposter? Poirot shook his head. No, the person knocking didn't want to come in. He just wanted to know, was there anyone in the room? You shuddered. If Arlena didn't answer, she was dead. And the person, when he heard nothing, understood the perfect moment to move on to the next part. Poirot concluded, we are no longer hunting a murderer. We are hunting a director. Someone who staged the death in the daytime, but rehearsed it in the middle of the night. Chapter 17. The Face in the Mirror. You follow Poirot into the old bathroom next to room 14, where Arlena used to stay. The room is unlocked. The smell of damp and salt still clings to the tiles. The light from the overhead light falls on a small round mirror on the wall. Her personal vanity mirror. Poirot takes out his handkerchief and wipes a corner of the mirror. A faint pink color appears. A lipstick mark. You lean in close. The lipstick mark is clear. The shape of the lips is full and thin, not like the thick, bright red lips Arlena used. And more importantly, she died that morning. So who did this lipstick mark come from? Poirot points to the outline of the lips. It's a new mark, not 2 days old, and it doesn't belong to Arlena. You ask, could it have been used by another guest? Poirot shakes his head. This bathroom is only for room 14, and after Arlena died, the hotel locked it. No one else. At least not on paper. You understand, another woman came back after Arlena died and used the bathroom. You rummage through the cupboard under the sink. There's an empty foundation bottle. The label scratched off, but the bottom still has a code from a cheap brand of cosmetics, the kind you'd find in the market, not the brand Arlena used. Poirot notes the code. We can track who bought it. You ask, why did she come back? Poirot answers, to cover her tracks. But she left behind the most personal thing, her own face. You step back and look at the mirror. It's not just a reflective surface. It's a witness of the imposter. She used the room, disguised herself, pretended to be Arlena, and left a little vanity, as if she needed to look at herself just before she left. Poirot said softly, "Mirror never lies. It never reflects the truth, but always the intention." You shuddered. A woman with no name, no face, no voice. But now you had a lip print, a thin line of paint to trace the remaining layers of makeup. Chapter 18. The Key Keeper. You find the old night watchman, named Greeley, in a small room next to the garage at the back of the hotel. He sits at the table, the oil lamp flickering, his hands shaking but his eyes sharp. In his memory, every night is the same, except one. The night Arlena died, Poirot asks bluntly, "Did anyone take the spare key that night?" Mr. Greeley looks up, his eyes slow as an old film reel. "Yes, a woman." "Did she say anything you ask?" "No. Just hand over a piece of paper, signed with a forged name, Christine. I know her real handwriting, but that night, I was tired. I didn't check it carefully." Poirot is silent. "And which key did she take?" Greeley opens a small drawer and takes out a list of keys, numbered and handwritten. A key is missing, 14. Boy. Arlena's room. You whisper. The woman pretending to be Christine, borrowing the key, entering Arlena's room before killing her. Poirot shakes his head. No. She entered the room, not to kill, but to switch. Leave a trail. Prepare the way for the next blow. Mr. Greeley continues. She was wearing a long dressing gown, hooded. I could only see her hands, gloves. But there was a birthmark on her wrist, a black mole. I think, near her left wrist. You pause. A detail too specific, impossible to imagine. Poirot pulls out his notebook and opens his notes. Of the medical reports of the female patients, only one had ever been mentioned by the doctor as having a mole on her left wrist. Not Christine, not Rosamond, not Linda. It was the new maid who had arrived earlier in the week, a girl named Carla, who worked at the spa and who no one had noticed. You were silent. Carla, who had been moving between the rooms. No one had asked questions. The one who had given Arlena her towel, who had cleaned Christine's room, who had been in Kenneth's room. A shadowy figure who knew everyone's habits. Poirot said softly, "We have found the person who had the key," and opened the whole play. Chapter 19. The Man Without a Motive. Carla sits in the old security room, where you and Poirot are waiting. The young woman, light brown hair, misty gray eyes, doesn't flinch. Doesn't flinch. Poirot doesn't accuse. He just asks, "Who hired you?" Carla exhales. I knew this would come. You wait for her to continue. Not a confession. A revelation. He didn't leave his real name. Carla begins. Just gave money, lots of it, and a script. She holds out a sheaf of papers, thin, old, handwritten, inside times. Dress descriptions, identification marks, a role-playing sheet. She must impersonate Arlena for 20 minutes, walk across the rocks at exactly 11 o'clock, and be seen. You knew Arlena would die, Poirot asks. Carla shakes her head. No. I thought it was to give someone an alibi. Only when I turned around, I saw blood. You look at her, no longer a suspect, a pawn being pushed around, unaware that you are in the middle of a bloody game. Poirot asks, the man who gave the money, what did he leave behind? Carla hesitates. Northern accent. Always gloved on his left hand. But there's a smell. What smell, you ask? Paint? The kind used for boats, so Poirot closes his eyes. Not a tourist. Someone who lives here. Someone who knows the hotel like the back of his hand. You think of someone the owner of the private boat. Quiet. Avoids customers. Poirot continues. He doesn't kill, but he hires people to kill. And he knows all the ways out, including getting away with it. You look at Carla. Why did you agree? She looks down. My sister needed an operation. In France. He knew. He chose me. Because he knew I would keep quiet if I had the money. Poirot did not blame her. He merely said softly, you are a person without motive. And yet you are the center of all motives. Chapter 20. Murder in the dark. It is dark when you and Poirot step down to the dock. No one is there. Just the dim light of hanging lamps, casting a cold glow on the damp wooden planks. A man is standing there. His name is Jero. He runs the private boat service around the island. Before, you had thought he was a sidekick. Now, he is front and center. Poirot does not call the police. He does not shout. He simply says, in a calm voice, it is time to close the curtain. Jero does not smile. He looks at Poirot with a knowing look. How long did it take you to track me down? As soon as I smelled the paint, not from the boat, but from the hand that pulled the rope. Poirot replies, you look at his hand. The gloves are off. His wrists are covered with chemical scars. You hired Carla. Poirot continues, you pick someone without motive, so that people look elsewhere. Then you make the murder look like a play. Jero curls his lips. I didn't kill. I arranged it. Poirot nods. And you think that's enough to wash your hands of it? Jero bows his head, as if confessing. She deserved to die. She ruined other people's families. I only helped the moment come sooner. You see not hatred in his eyes, but a strange conviction that he did what was necessary. Poirot steps forward. Light as a shadow. No one has the right to end a life, because he sees another living wrongly. You see lights in the distance. The police are coming. Poirot has called. Jero doesn't run. He sits down on the edge of the pier, his hands touching the water, as if to wipe away the invisible blood from his skin. Poirot turns to you, as light as the wind. The case is over, but man will always make the same mistake if he does not look at the consequences of his one incarnation as God. You stand and watch the man being led away in handcuffs. No screams, no remorse, no fear. You see no victory, only another silence, heavier than the gunshots. On the island, the sea still beats, and in your heart, a question echoes. How many murders are called by other names? Justice, jealousy, protection? You have no answer, only the silent step away from the dock, where the crime does not begin, but ends in the darkness.